Hi, welcome to my channel Trail. We are trailing at a good speed. We are talking about business management. We are talking about issues and also how to optimize the profit. Today I have taken a topic which is very common: cost management. Everyone talk about cost management, but what happened really, they end up doing cost cutting. When the business fluctuates, the costs also increase or decrease, but not in the proportion of business volume. And that's why the cost management is important. And sometimes to avoid the knee-jerk reaction of cost cutting. Now, when I talk about cost cutting, there are two different things: cost management, and then talk about the cost cutting. Cost cutting is the knee-jerk reaction. What's the cost cutting? Cost cutting means we start cutting down the supplies, cutting down the facilities. So cost cutting impact the guest services because it's a knee-jerk reaction. It's like next month going to be less volume, there's less demand in the business, and we start cutting the cost. We start taking out the supplies, we're reducing the facilities, and the impact goes to the guest. So we should avoid the cost cutting. We should talk about the cost saving. Now, cost saving is the product of cost management. When we do cost management is a planning process. We plan in advance, we plan for future, and then when the cost management process put in action, it's a cost saving exercise, it's a cost saving. We should avoid this knee-jerk reaction, that is cost cutting, because it impacts the guest experience, guest services, which is my future business. Actually, guest is my best promoter. Whatever guests see in my hotel, or in my restaurant, or in my business, they go out, they talk about it. In our hotels, what we manage, I see sometimes the general managers or the manager talk about the cost cutting. They say demand is low, we can't sell enough rooms. So they start cutting the cost. Now my question is, why we do cost cutting? We know demand going to go less in few months. Let's say September. Traditionally, September is a low demand month. And every hotel has the same problem. There's a less demand in September, and we know it. That is the time we talk about the cost management. When we make the budget, like this year we're making a budget for next year, the same time we have to do an exercise. Cost management is a process of planning, collecting, tabulating and analyzing the data, a real-time data, and see how the business flow, and then plan for the future. Like in hotels, we do a budget for 12 months, January, Feb, March, April, all the months. And we know few months are low demand month, which is May, June and September. So we all know in advance. So we don't need to do a knee-jerk reaction of cost cutting suddenly. We know 3 months going to be low, there's less demand, and how we're going to manage those 3 months to optimize the profit. Cutting down the facilities and the supplies and impacting the guest expectation, their experience is going to be counterproductive. Your guests are our best promoter. They go out, they talk about us. And if we don't provide a good service, good facility, supplies in the room, it's going to impact us. We spend so much money in the social media, photography, influencers. We do a lot of marketing to show our product to the world. But our best promoter is our guest. And when they stay in the low seasons, let's say September, and we start doing the cost cutting. So they go out and they say, okay, I stay there and this was a problem. Certain part of building was closed, there was no electricity, the supplies were less. I was talking to one of the general manager of one of the property we manage. He says, September month, I'm going to cut down the supply. I'm going to keep 2 bottles of water instead of 4 bottles of water. Now, that looked like not a good idea. Yes, you can save, like 1 bottle costs you 4 or 5 baht, you save 10 baht and you sell 1,000 room, you save 10,000, but it's not going to give you enough benefit. But the guest expectation and the reaction will be different. You can cut down the supplies, but when the guest goes to the room, because they're paying the room. Now, one of the argument comes from the hotel management is, in September our rate is low. Yes, our rate is low because demand is low. The same room what you're selling for 5,000, in December you sell for 15,000, in January you sell for 20,000, in March you sell for 10,000. The rate fluctuates, it's dynamic rate. In our industry it's a dynamic rate. The rate keeps changing and we know it. So why should I change my supplies? So we should do the cost management. This exercise has to start a year before. The same time we do the budget, we do the cost management exercise, we do the planning properly. And how do we do it? So we segment our expenses into fixed and variable and also semi-variable. Now, the fixed are the expenses which don't change with the business volume. If I'm selling 100 rooms or 50 rooms or 2,000 rooms, my fixed costs remain the same. Same in the restaurant. I may be having 20 guests, 200 guests, 180 guests, the fixed cost remains same. But the variable cost keep changing because this is mostly the supply cost. This is a cost of sale. If you're selling the food, is a food cost, is a cost of food based on the food. It can be supply, how many guests are coming, those supplies. So variable costs keep changing, fixed cost stays same, and then there's a portion of semi-variable cost. Now semi-variable cost is, it's not completely variable. A portion is fixed and then the variable portion start. The example is the gardening contracts in the hotel. In the gardening contract, I have a 10 gardeners outsourced. But I don't need 10 gardeners in the month of September because my low month. So what I'll do, I use only 7 gardeners. I don't use 3 gardeners. So I don't need so many gardeners. So my cost goes down. If my cost is 10,000 and I take out 3 gardeners for certain months, it goes down to 7,000 and again go back to 10,000. So I know this month I don't need so many gardeners or I don't need so much of facility. So this is my semi-variable cost. It keeps changing. There's a fixed portion. Like I still need few gardeners, let's say 5 or 7, but I can't completely take out. But I can play with certain portion. So it's a semi-variable cost. Maintenance contract also I put on the semi-variable cost. Although they are fixed costs because we can still talk about it. When we do a maintenance contracts 1 year before, we know September going to be low month. I'm not going to use the machinery or I may have to close certain section. I can negotiate a contract that this month I'm going to pay you less. And in return, I can give you a longer term contract. Instead of 12 months, I give you 24-month contract, a longer term or 36 months. But then in May, June and September, my low months, I'm not going to pay you 10,000. I'm going to pay you 8,000 or 7,000. But again, I go back to the 10. So this fixed portion can be converted into a semi-variable portion, and that's what the cost management is. That's what I talk about cost management. We have to think about those costs which can be managed during the low period when the demand is low. Now to have a proper cost management, we need 3 things. We need a time, we need to have proper time. We can't do a cost management immediately for tomorrow. It's a planning process. Second is resources. Do we have enough resources? And third is obviously the planning model. How are we going to plan it? Again, why I'm talking about the cost management, not cost cutting. A small example, I went to a restaurant and we asked for the coconut water. The staff say we don't have it. The answer was because this time is a low demand month, so we're doing cost cutting. So it's not a cost cutting. You're letting go your revenue. You're impacting your guest experience. You're not giving the full facility. You're not giving full service. So the cost cutting is impacting the revenue, impacting the guest services. Instead, we should plan. We should plan properly. And when we plan, we need the data. We need to collect the data. If it's a running business, the last year, what we have done, how much was the cost for this time, which area we can work on, look at the segmentation correctly, which fixed cost can be changed. Very popular one is the payroll. People start giving leaves on the low demand months. But what else can be done? Can we convert our manpower into fixed, temporary and part-time instead of having all fixed? Or this time we use more part-time? Should we have trainees? on the high demand months and the low demand months we don't have trainees. What should we do? Should we send the people to other properties? Those kind of thinking has to be done at least a year before the year start. So when the time arrives, we are ready with the resources, with the planning, and we have enough time to manage it. Now this 3R principle of reduce, reuse and recycle is something which should be happening every month. Whether we have high demand, we have low demand, is a normal process. It's a process of optimizing the business. We have to see which item we can reuse, which item we can recycle, and where we can reduce. Electricity we can reduce where, which time. What item can be recycled or which item can be reused. So this is a normal process. It should happen all the 12 months, not on the low demand months. So we should not again confuse with this 3R principle. 3R principle is for entire year. Then we have a cost management plan, which is mainly for the low demand month. That's how we optimize the profit. We should not think about cost cutting. Cost cutting is a counterproductive. It impacts the business. We should not do any cost management exercise which can be seen from the eye of the guest. Now what guest can see? It's very simple. When we segment our cost, we segment in fixed and variable or semi-variable also. The guest can see only the variable cost. They don't see my fixed cost. They can see my supplies, food cost, all those things they can see and they can experience, but they don't see my fixed cost. They don't see my lease cost. They don't see my maintenance contract. So cost management goes strongly towards the fixed expenses, not towards the variable expenses. And my experience is whenever this cost cutting or cost saving start, the first thing the managers start reducing the supplies, impacting the expenses which are variable. They start impacting the variable cost, which is seen by my guest, and guest is my best promoter, and they see it and they go in the market. The perception of the market change. It impacts my future business. I can't improve my sale because the perception in the market is wrong. I can't use the demand properly by yielding the rate in the hotel, increase the rate because the market says different about me, which I am not, just because of that cost cutting, a knee-jerk reaction. So my advice to avoid it, to a proper cost management plan, maybe for 3 months if you think 12 months too much, or maybe for 6 months, implement it. Don't go after variable cost, go after fixed cost where you can manage the fixed cost or semi-variable cost, not only variable cost. Do the cost cutting or cost saving on the guest, what they can see on the variable, work on the fixed cost, make a cost management plan and optimize your profits. That's all I have. See you soon in my next session with some interesting topic on the business management.